everybody, and welcome to today's video. And in today's video, I'll be doing the 2024 election prediction between Texas Senator Ted Cruz and Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown. I'm going to try to make this quick. I'm going to start it by labeling all of Sherrod Brown's safe states. Colorado would be safe. It would be on the line. The suburbs are going to continue to shift to the left. Ted Cruz doesn't have the strength of Hispanic and Latino voters to be able to keep it likely, and Sherrod Brown is pretty average in the suburbs, whereas Ted Cruz is pretty weak. Montana could also be likely. Given Sherrod Brown's strength with rural voters, I could say it's likely, especially with Ted Cruz. But I don't think that Montana, it's more of a moderate state, and Sherrod Brown is progressive, so it's definitely not going to be. Also, to be fair, Biden, the moderate, lost it by a safe margin against Trump. Anyways, I'm going to go start by labeling all of Brown's safe state, or what am I even saying? Likely states. I'm going to go label all of Brown's likely states. Everything I just labeled. So, New Mexico, he is stronger with oil workers than Biden, probably slightly below average with Hispanic and Latino voters, but Biden was worse. In Texas and Florida, but generally, he wasn't great. So, Sherrod Brown is probably going to perform similarly, he's going to overperform, because he's going to do better with, oil workers. In Virginia, Sherrod Brown, this is the type of state where he's not an amazing candidate. He's pretty average in the suburbs, and he's not amazing for black voters, but Ted Cruz can get the rural turnout needed. So this will probably be a narrower margin of victory for Sherrod Brown. Virginia, he's weaker in a state like Virginia, but even he's probably worse in the South, but he's not that awful in the South. But in New Hampshire, he's just gonna have enough appeal to white rural voters, whereas Ted Cruz, I don't think has much appeal to white rural college educated voters. Brown is may not large, it's inelastic, but Brown he has the populist messaging to be able to do well in the 2nd district. In Nebraska 2nd, Ted Cruz is just really weak in the suburbs. Brown is pretty average, and the suburbs are going to continue to shift to the left. In Minneapolis, Sherrod Brown has the strength in the iron range to be able to do well with the working class. He's not great with black voters, but he could probably make up for it in the iron range. Michigan, here's the thing about Brown with black voters. He's worse than Biden, yes. But first off, against a candidate like Ted Cruz, I think he'd get enough anti-Cruz turnout, and B, it's not like he's that much worse. Yes, he's worse. And this is I just have this pulled up. I kind of just want to go, look at it. I was looking at Wisconsin earlier. In Ohio, let's go take a look at Cuyahoga. So, Sherrod Brown won Cuyahoga by roughly 45, exactly 45%. I haven't looked at this. I'm just interested in seeing it. Whereas Biden won it by only 33%. So Sherrod Brown actually overperformed Biden in Cuyahoga, which is the county that Cleveland is in. So I think that Brown is probably better in urban areas. So we can also go take a look at Columbus over here. Brown only carried it by 37. Or not Columbus, the county that Columbus is in. Biden only carried it by 31.3 or 31.4. Can't do math. And then Biden only carried Hamilton County by 15.8, whereas Brown carried it by, how much did Brown carry it by? It's going to let me look at the results from Hamilton County. Okay. Whereas Brown carried it by 18.8. So, Brown actually overperformed Biden, which is making me second guess on what I said earlier. But overall, he's going to be able to get enough of the black vote, and he's going to be able to get enough turnout in urban areas. And he's strong enough for the black vote in an area like Minneapolis that he can do it, especially considering the fact that he's not weak in the suburbs. He's just average. Michigan, once again, he's going to be strong enough in Detroit, but he's going to get significantly more support from the working class. For Cruz's likely states, he gets Nebraska's 1st, Kansas, Missouri, Indiana, South Carolina, and Alaska. In Nebraska's 1st, the suburbs are just going to continue to push it to the left unless you have a Democrat that is really bad in rural areas and is really bad in the suburbs, which is unlikely because Most Democrats that are good at the working class are not great in rural areas, but um, typically above average, or at least have more strength. And then but they're typically not great in the suburbs. If you're great in the suburbs, then you may have less rural appeal. Um, so I don't know that it'll be able to be safe for much longer. I don't even know if it was safe in 2020. It was like 15. It was like on the line. Kansas, Ted Cruz is not going to get the rural turnout needed. Brown will retain enough turnout from Kansas City suburbs. Missouri, Brown's going to be able to be strong enough with white rural farmers. Cruz won't be able to turn out as many. Brown's going to be strong enough with them. In Indiana, Brown's going to be strong enough with the working class. He's probably going to do decent in Indianapolis. In South Carolina, Brown is, once again, he's slightly below average, probably with black voters, and Ted Cruz will turn out slightly less white rural voters, so it'll probably be similar to 2020 in terms of them both just turning out less voters. Although I would say if any of them are going to turn out more voters, it would probably be Sherrod Brown. In Alaska, Sherrod Brown's better with oil workers. We're going to see more and more Native American voters turn out, which will help Sherrod Brown there. For Brown's lean states, he gets Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and that is it. So in Nevada, Cruz won't be able to turn out enough white rural voters, and Brown's not going to be like these two are probably going to cancel each other out. Cruz is going to turn out less rural voters, and Brown's going to turn out less Hispanic and Latino voters. Those two will probably cancel each other out because of the amounts. And it'll probably still be like Brown plus 2.4. We could see Brown turn out we could see Brown's. I'm trying to what's the right wording? We could see the amount of Hispanic and Latino voters that don't turn out under Brown be less than the amount of white rural voters that did not turn out under Brown, or that did not turn out under Cruz. I don't know if that made any sense. Basically, the impacts of Brown could make, or are probably going to have, or Brown being on the ballot is probably going to have less impact on Hispanic and Latino turnout than Cruz on white rural turnout. Like, Cruz is still a good candidate for the white rural vote, but he's just not Trump, and that's not great. If you're a Republican in rural areas, he supports Trump, so he's going to be better than most Republicans. In Wisconsin, Sherrod Brown is really good at the working class. Ted Cruz is not very good. Milwaukee, Brown's going to really run it up with black voters. He's going to do really well in Milwaukee. We could see Wisconsin be likely. Ohio, Brown's going to be able to do well enough in Cleveland, in Ohio. What am I even saying? In Columbus and Cincinnati, he's going to run it up. He's going to do really well with the working class. And he's probably going to be fairly strong with white rural voters. Pennsylvania, Sherrod Brown's going to be able to run it up with minority voters. In Philly, he's also going to do really well in Pittsburgh. I mean, like, in Philly, he's probably going to be similar to Biden, and Biden did really run it up, whereas Cruz is a good candidate for him to run against because Cruz is a candidate. Other than Trump, I would say, other than Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene and actually a lot of people, but of the people that could actually get the nomination, other than Trump, if I were Sherrod Brown, I would probably want to run against Ted Cruz, just because he is one of the best candidates to get anti-Cruz turnout will probably play a factor. I mean, like, he's one of, I think that he's one of the Republicans, or he's a Republican. He's higher up on the list of Republicans who are going to get a lot of anti-them turnout, I guess. But Sherrod Brown's going to do really well at the working class in Pittsburgh. Ted Cruz won't be able to turn out enough rural voters. For Cruz's lean states, he gets Texas, Florida, Iowa, and Maine second. Texas, that gets his home state. Sherrod Brown is also not built for a state like Texas. He's not going to be amazing with Hispanic and Latino voters. He's going to be average in the suburbs. I don't see him being great in Texas rural areas. I see the suburbs pushing it farther to the left, and I see Brown being better than Biden with Hispanic and Latino voters. I mean, like, if it reverts to being D plus 30 with Hispanic and Latino voters, under Biden, I would say it could. Under most Democrats, I would say it could. Or under an incumbent Biden. Against Ted Cruz, probably back to D plus 20. But with an incumbent Biden, against Trump, I would say that it will probably return to at least being like D plus 25 ish, around there. But Sherrod Brown's not an incumbent. He's not an amazing candidate. They'll probably shift farther to the left than they were in 2020, but it won't be enough. And he's just really not a great candidate for a state like Texas. In Florida, similar thing. He's not going to do very well in Miami. He's not going to do very well with Hispanic and Latino voters. In the suburbs, he's just going to be average. Whereas Cruz is going to be bad in the suburbs. And I don't see either of them being able to win a whole lot of older white voters, which is they're probably lesser is going to turn out. In Iowa, I mean, like Brown has the populist messaging to win, but Cruz does as well, and it has this Republican lean. I see Cruz being able to retain enough Trump voters in Iowa to be able to carry it lean. Ohio, I mean, just because it's Brown's home state is why I gave it to him, because I mean, like, it depends on the candidate, but a lot of the time Ohio will probably end up being a Democratic state if you have a progressive populist from the Rust Belt, like Sherrod Brown or Tammy Baldwin or Tom Wolf. For someone, they're probably going to do pretty well in a state like Ohio, whereas Iowa, I could see them doing worse. In Maine second, it's a very similar thing. Brown has populist messaging. Cruz will retain enough voters because he also has populist messaging. Now these final three states are all tilt states: Arizona, Georgia, and then North Carolina. I'm actually going to go give to Ted Cruz. In Arizona, once again, Sherrod Brown's not great for Hispanic and Latino voters, and Cruz is more of a traditional Republican than Trump is, and Brown is farther to the left than Biden is, which is going to probably make these traditionally conservative suburbs vote a little bit to the right of where they were in 2020. But Sherrod Brown's going to be strong enough with Hispanic and Latino voters. I could see it being red, though. That's not outside the realm of possibility. In Georgia, I mean, like, Sherrod Brown, once again, he's not great with black voters. He's pretty average, I guess, maybe slightly below. Whereas Ted Cruz, he's going to be really unpopular with black voters, and I think that we'll see enough anti-Cruz turnout to the point where it'll probably, Sherrod Brown will probably be pretty strong with the black vote just because of that. Ted Cruz is going to turn out a lot of rural voters, like, nationally, but just not as much Trump, which is going to hurt him. Sherrod Brown's pretty average in the suburbs, whereas Ted Cruz is really weak. North Carolina, Sherrod Brown, I mean, like, he would have to be a really good candidate for the black vote, whereas the black vote in North Carolina in 2020 was, like, it already had, like, their fair share, their share of the electorate, I guess their fair share of the electorate. They were already at their, share of the electorate, whereas, where Democrats were also doing very well with them, so the Democrats would need to run a really good candidate, for the black vote in North Carolina, like, really, really good to be able to win. Or do really well with the working class, or not be able to get a whole lot of rural turnout. Sherrod Brown's going to be really good at the working class, and they would also need to probably do pretty well in the suburbs. Or they would need to, but it would be a hard state to flip in 2024. But Sherrod Brown has the ability to be able to run it up with the working class. In the suburbs, he's pretty average, whereas Ted Cruz is really weak. If you were stronger with black voters by even liking this video, if you enjoyed it, please leave a like below. Stay tuned for my next video tomorrow. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.